Welcome to SOS VHS. Today, I had the opportunity to sit with one of my favorite people and talk about her favorite movie. We're talking about a great Olympian athlete, a great podcaster. You might know her from the TigerBelly podcast and the Trash Tuesday podcast. And we're talking about The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou by Wes Anderson. Welcome, Khalyla Kuhn. How you doing?
Good, fancy.
Thank you so much for coming.
Of course. I've never been so happy to be on a set before.
Yeah, it's cool, no?
It's beyond cool. Now I wish TigerBelly and Trash Tuesday did this.
Yeah, only if your producers were as good.
If only.
But, okay, so let's start. The Life Aquatic came out on December 24th of 2004. I think you were 19. Were you in Las Vegas by then at school?
I was in transition, so I was both in Vegas and LA. It's not too long after my dad died. So I was definitely I had big feelings during this time.
Right.
And I remember just being kind of high one day and being with my roommate and him saying, "Hey, there's another Wes Anderson film." I'm like, yeah, put it on. And then me just feeling this immense sense of comfort from watching that movie.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to ask you, what about this movie made it to the top of your list?
Well, it's pretty obvious. I'm a water person.
Right.
I was born and raised in an archipelago. I grew up swimming with frogfish, with brittle stars. I grew up free diving with my dad, who was an avid scuba diver. He would bring home mother of pearl. He would always come back with his from his ocean adventures, always like having collected some cool thing. He would drop us off in the middle. A little, not too far from my island is an extension of the Marianas Trench, and he would drop my sister and I off there, like with a pump boat, and he would have us swim against the current. Like, he was a big ocean guy, and then I became a big ocean baby. Hence why the film and the idea of of Jacques Cousteau, say for instance, was really exciting for me.
Right. Were you a fan of Jacques Cousteau back in when you were growing up?
I had always heard his name. Like, he was obviously like he existed like a long time ago. We always heard it. And I think my dad was always like, I chose the Philippines because Jacques Cousteau said this was the last final frontier, especially for a guy who was an ocean adventurer.
Right.
So I just always heard his name, which is, I hate to name drop so early in the show, but I went to dinner. Well, Bobby and I went to dinner with his son, Pierre, a couple years ago. And I remember just being like, oh my God, that's Jacques Cousteau's son. That's him right there.
Is he in following his father's footsteps?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you ever imagine that your life was going to go in that direction?
No, and I didn't want to fangirl too hard.
Okay.
Because he was like a friend of my best friend, and I was just like, oh God, just keep it in, Khalil. Do not talk about the ocean.
I remember when I saw this movie, it was my first year in the US, and I went to the movie theater. I didn't understand a word they were saying, so I had a very strange experience watching it. But I could pick up on certain themes, and I see definitely this like longing for a father and things like that. Were you in that mind space when watching the movie? Would you identify him with someone like the Owen Wilson's characters, Ned? In that connection?
Maybe a little bit, because, my dad we had such a big, like probably 2 generations between us. He had me when he was 60. There was a sense of like, I revered him so much, but I couldn't quite connect to him emotionally. So yeah, maybe there was a little bit of that, but the only thing we did have in common really was the ocean. And that's when I always felt closest to my dad, was when we would go on our ocean adventures.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little bit of Ned Plimpton in me. I'm sorry, Kingsley.
Yes.
Kingsley. Yeah.
You know the movie well.
Yeah.
Also, I heard that in your bloodline there is a little bit of that Tomb Raider adventurer. Is that part of also this type of movie that attracts you, like they're looking for an adventure?
Yeah, my dad was. When I looked at Bill Murray's character, Steve Zissou, he reminded me of my dad. He was somebody who just kind of, my dad came from money. He had the money to do things. He had the money to explore. He flew like a single engine jet from like Borneo to the Philippines. He would collect weird animals. We had a koala growing up. We had a monitor lizard who almost cut my sister's finger off when she was 4 years old that had to be like reattached.
So you live in a Wes Anderson movie?
I really, really kind of do, minus the stop motion,
Right. So you said that you were between Vegas and LA. Was your college also, going from place to place, or were you ever in Las Vegas for a full time?
Yeah, I was there, and I was in Vegas for exactly 3 years. I went there on a swim scholarship that got taken away eventually after my first year, but I stayed there for an extra 2 years. And being in Vegas was hard. I always imagined myself, I always just feel better when there's a coastline I can drive to.
Right.
I know that sounds so fucking woo-woo, but I need to see water.
Right.
I need to take multiple showers a day. It is something that just, I don't know, just brings me so much comfort, I guess.
Yeah. Why did you choose Vegas?
Because they gave me a full ride.
That was
I think I had other options were Ohio State, ASU, and I think it was we'll give you 80% or 90%. My sister was already a swimmer in Vegas, so. Oh. And my dad was actively dying. And I was like, if I could still be close by when the time comes to, when the time comes for him to transition, then I can just 45 minutes to Burbank is close,
Yeah. I look at a lot of your interviews, and obviously you have talked a lot about your life on podcasts, but that part of your life in Las Vegas is a little more obscure. For some reason, I haven't found that much information. Where, is there something is that a time that you don't want to talk about, or you'd remember not being very exciting?
Hazy and really kind of brutal, because my senior year of high school was really brutal. I had a lot of mental health issues. I was in and out of psychiatric hospitals because I wanted to, not to get too grim, but I wanted to end my life. I had a dying father, and my sister had just gone away. I had a mom who worked all day because that was the only way, and the family could make money. And she was working an underpaid job under the table because she wasn't a citizen. I was failing out of school. I was just feeling pretty desperate. I had quit swimming at that point. Thankfully, I got my shit together for 2 months, and I trained really hard for 2 months, swam a really good race my senior year, got recruited, and somehow managed to get offered a full ride. But when I got to UNLV, a couple months into getting my full ride, they basically said, you're missing an NCAA credit. We have to take this away from you. All the while, I was still trying to make it into the Philippine national team for swimming for the Athens Olympics, which was my lifelong dream as a kid. You just write that every day in my diary. One day, one day, one day, one day. And it's not like I wanted to make the U.S. team. You'd have to be an alien to make the U.S. team.
Right.
I just wanted to go to Olympic Village and live out this, get my Olympic rings on me. And while that was happening, my dad was dying. I was doing bad things in Vegas, probably getting drunk every weekend, probably getting kicked out of places. And then my dad dying, and then my swimming career ending, and then me just being what now? So hazy is the reason why you don't hear a lot about it. Just a really blurry, painful time of my life. Probably borderline alcoholic too.
So how do you still manage to be a good student? Because eventually, right, you went to nursing school. Yeah. So how does that happen? How is you just super smart?
No, definitely not super smart. I think I got my shit together not immediately after. I didn't go back to school seriously go back to school until I was 24? Mm-hmm. So there was a period of time there where I was just up to no good, dating the wrong people, and just trying to figure shit out. But when I decided that, okay, I don't have money for med school, I don't want to be in that kind of debt. I was like, oh, let's try pharmacy. And I was like, ooh, I don't want to be in that kind of debt. And my mom's like, what about nursing? Because,
Default.
Filipino, yeah. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, it's like 2 years. Why not? Let's just go. And so I did that. And I got my shit together because I started to panic about my life and not being not making money.
So you talk about being ugly in high school. So is this time when like you realize you're hot?
When does someone realize they're hot?
Yeah.
I want to answer this as honestly as possible.
Yes.
So when I came to America,
Yeah.
like I was hot in the Philippines. Even though like I had braces, I had bushy eyebrows, like because I was what they call mestiza, which is like mixed kid, they always look at you as better than the rest, which is so fucked up.
Right.
So I came into America full guns a-blazing, being like, Devon Sawa, this is it. I'm going to nail, you know what I mean? Like I just had this like false sense of confidence because I was a swimmer back home. I was just like this, pretty athlete. Boy, did that. It was a reality check for me. Like as soon as I sat down in my first class, a boy looked over at me and was like, ugh, you don't shave your legs? God, I didn't know we had to shave our legs in America. And I within the first week, I knew I was like, oh my God, I'm a 4 in America. I better get my shit together quickly. So I befriended a bunch of cholas who were so good with their makeup, overplucked my eyebrows. They're like, girl, you need to grow your hair out. And I just, worked really hard to get hot.
Okay.
But
it worked.
Yeah, I feel really hot on the inside. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, we're gonna jump a lot, but when do you realize you have that confidence to just, okay, I can be talking and be entertaining on mic? How does that, where is that coming from? From like a nurse who's like, a swimmer? What?
I don't know. I mean, when it comes to talking about things that are difficult, I've been really good with that. Only because that's just how my family was. Like or at least my aunties, when it came to talking about sex, they were very open, very like flirty older women. So that part, like I heard my whole life, very kind of vulgar. And I just thought that was normal. So I kind of just always like led with that. And people were like, oh, like,
that's interesting.
That's crazy that you can say that with a straight face.
Right.
And, but podcasting is a totally different thing.
Right.
I feel like Bobby really, hate to use the word groom, but he didn't give me a choice. I was finishing up nursing school. I was right about to graduate. I was doing my preceptorship, and he was on DVD ASA a lot.
Right.
And we had just started dating, like maybe like a month and a half in, and a friend calls me, and I'm in a clinic, an abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood, shout out. Where's my camera? That shout out. And I was getting an abortion.
Yeah, things like that. I mean, to me, every time you talk like that, I'm shocked. Maybe it's my Catholic, upbringing.
I'm Catholic too.
I know you're bad Catholic.
Bad Catholic.
Right? So yeah, those things to me are shocking, but also like entertaining to listen. And also, I guess a lot of people relate to like, oh, nobody talks about this.
I didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
Certainly not an abortion. But a friend called me and he was like, hey, Bobby Lee is talking about saying you're getting an abortion. And I'm like, what? And so he went on DVD ASA and basically said, yeah, like got her dating this girl, got her pregnant, she's getting an abortion, but don't worry, like I paid for it. I remember calling him right after, lose my number, never call me again. You have no respect. You have no values. You fucking heathen. Like, don't even think about me. Don't ever fucking mention my name. I just lost it. And I never wanted to see him again. I was like, how fucking dare you talk about something? So I was like, I'm still in nursing school. Like, what if my preceptor is just like, oh, hey, heard you a baby. You know what I mean? Like, and he groveled. He did some emotional blackmail. He was like, I'm going to relapse if you don't come back to me. It was very dramatic. I was very impressionable at this time. So I said, okay, yeah. You know, a week later, I was like, okay, you know, like, I accept your apology, but don't do that again. But then he said, Khalyla, he's like, if you don't own that part about you, it's going to be held over you. So it's like you either hold it over yourself or other people will hold it over you. And it was a really good lesson I learned from him. It's like there are certain things that you just kind of have to come forward with so you become less afraid of it. And that was how he groomed me basically into being a fucking potty mouth podcaster.
But I mean, that lesson, you didn't have to learn it. It didn't take long for you to learn it because I saw your debut at DVD ASA, right? Like a few weeks after that, I guess, and you were there full blast, like introducing yourself to the world, like and talking like that already.
He scared me. Okay. He's like, the one thing you never want to be is boring.
Right.
He's like, throw it out there. And I'm like, what do I have to throw out there? And I was like, yeah, I was with 2 guys, relationship with 2 men. You know, and I remember walking out there with a tail tucked between my legs and being like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? He was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all good. These things are good. Part of the grooming.
Right.
And then I was like, are you sure? He was like, you weren't boring. You know, they'll hate you, they'll love you, but you just weren't boring. So I don't know if that was a good thing, Fancy, but that is basically what set me off into this path of.
Right. And I was rewatching some of those DVD ASA and I forgot how similar that set look to the original TigerBelly. You know, I imagine like that's what you got the inspiration to, oh, I can do this. Yeah. Tell me about that moment where you decide, okay, I can do my own version of this by myself.
Well, I just really like the idea of David Cho and Asa Akira just laying it all out there, maybe at a cost, you know, but I found it to be the most authentic thing I had really come across in a really long time. Here were 2 Asians being disastrous, which is the kind of ilk that I feel like I came from. I'm like, this is so relatable to me. Like, I feel just as disastrous as them. And when DVD ASA ended about a year after, I think it was close to a year afterwards, I was like, oh, I'm just going to talk into a mic and practice. And I called that podcast The Calamity. Mm-hmm. And it was just me, I don't know, sometimes Bobby. It would be so silly. Some of them were 17 minutes long because his ADHD wouldn't allow him for more.
Yeah.
But we always, we were just like, this is so fun. I remember having no furniture. It was a second bedroom. And we were holding like the mics like this. We had 1 mic, so we had to kind of smash our heads together.
Right.
And he was like, oh, this is fun. And we did 10 episodes of that. And I told him, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to try and do this for real. And first he didn't say he wanted to join. I was like, I'm just going to do it. So I went to Sam Ash. Yeah. Bought the mics. Nice. Yeah. He saw me on the floor really doing it. He was like, oh, you're really doing it. He's like, fuck it. Let me get in there. So I already had a second mic knowing that he was going to get in there. And then we recorded our first 2-hour podcast. And afterwards I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to edit it. And I looked at it and it had not it was not recording.
Right.
And that's when I called my friend Jenna and said, hey, do you just have somebody who just press play, who's not an intrusive type, blah, blah, blah. She was like, oh yeah, my friend Gilbert, I think he knows how to do that stuff. And
he lied his way into.
And I was like, you know how to do this stuff? He's like, yeah. And then he got there and he was like, I don't know how to do this stuff. I was like, fuck, who cares? I like you. Let's just learn. So we spent 2 weeks and weeks looking at how on YouTube, how to start a podcast, how to upload it, because it was just on Libsyn at that time.
Right.
We didn't know how to export it to iTunes, nothing. We were just kids who had no idea what we were doing, but worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. No, but what happened to the nursing track? You didn't like it from the beginning?
And it was always plan G.
Okay.
I respect nurses so much. My mom's a nurse. Both my sisters are nurses. I saw how stressed they were. I felt like nursing school I loved learning everything that I did, and I'm proud of having some knowledge.
Yeah.
But it's just not for me. There was a part of me that was always really creative that was never allowed to be watered. My parents were like, nope, like biology, this, that, science, athlete, science. And then once I started, when I met Bobby, that was the sweetest thing about him. He really does make you feel like you can do anything. Like he has that ability to convince someone not to make decisions based on fear.
Right.
And I've always been the opposite. I've just been like, nope, like money first. He was like, no, like your dreams first, your heart first. Do it. Like, yeah, I just can't pay my phone bill though. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he was so sweet in that first year. He was just like, I got you. I don't want you to be a nurse. I don't want you to go back. You don't look happy. It was really sweet.
I could have used a nurse.
Oh, yeah. In my dreams, he speaks. He's my Wilson.
Oh my goodness. He's getting hotter by the minute.
Right? Yeah, this crew is all bare bones.
You want to tell?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Are you a bad friend? Ever wanted a place to talk trash on a Tuesday with others? Or a stage to show off your TigerBelly face tattoo?
Or maybe you just need somewhere to talk about movies you could not live without.
Right. So you are in luck. I have big news for you. 7X is launching a Discord server and you are invited.
Oh, that is big news.
So come, share with us your favorite memes, tell us what you ate last night, or even give us unsolicited opinion about the TV show that you love and we haven't seen yet.
We can't stop you.
So, click the link in the description below and join the fun.
I'll be there giving a whole load of health and wellness tips.
I'll see you there. 7X Discord.
Now, Andres, I got a bone to pick with you.
You have to stop saying that.
Never.
So, okay, so Life Aquatic has some of my favorite comedians in it, like Bill Murray. Did you imagine yourself, okay, this is the world that I'm going to be in? Like, eventually I'll be around comedians all the time. I'll be a comedian of sorts, of like in that wall of entertainment, coming from where you were coming from.
Yeah, I would say that I've always been a big fan of, like, comedic films were always my favorite. But I was always the least funniest in my family. My aunties, my cousins, they're just so intrinsically fucking hilarious. And I liked surrounding myself with fucking hilarious people. I can be kind of a dark cloud sometimes, and I need that funny energy in my life. It is what I'm used to. It's my baseline. It's what I feel like. I don't know. It's a dose of medicine that I need. And so, yeah, there was I don't know if I manifested it, but I think I am totally magnetized to funny people. I like to be in their presence.
Okay. I can see that. And also, I mean, I don't know if you can go back to high school and say, hey, you told me once, I think, that you knew that you were gonna be rich one day, no matter what. You know that you had that thing inside. Don't know how, but I'll get there. And that theme for success, and you're doing it. I don't know how. How do you have that inside? Also, being at the same time a person who was going through dark times.
So I learned this recently from Dr. Drew, and that is maladaptive daydreaming. So it turns out all of my delusions and me daydreaming about, I want to do this and be this one day, came from me wanting to escape my situation as a child, whether I was getting beat by my mom or just in whatever trauma I was experiencing at that time. And I would dissociate. I would stare off, and usually in that stare off were my delusions of grandeur. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. But I think it accidentally manifested it for me. Like it accidentally happened because I was obsessed with escaping my reality, and my head was always in the clouds. And I think there is value in being a kid with your head in the clouds and not being realistic and having that sense of it can happen to me, you know? And I don't know. I don't know if I believe in the whole manifestation thing, but I accidentally, two things. It's either I accidentally got here or my mental illness worked in my favor. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I was imagining things that, you know, I thought could happen to me.
Wow. So you identify more with the Steve Zissou character than with Angelica's Houston as character?
Eleanor?
Yeah.
No, I really like Eleanor. And I think what I love about her is that she knows she's the brains behind the whole operation. Not only is she the brains, but she's also the money, right? She's the money behind the whole Steve Zissou enterprise. But what I find funny and relatable about Steve Zissou is that he really kind of doesn't want to give it up to her. He gets very insecure at the fact when people mention Eleanor being, you know, she's the brains.
Right.
And, but there is, what I relate to about Steve Zissou is his, like, I think that, or maybe I don't relate to him as much as I do Eleanor. But there is like a childlike kind of like wonderment about him where he's just, it's like, he's a fake adult. And I feel like a fake adult a lot. I have a Peter Pan complex or whatever, but I always ask my therapist this. I'm like, because she's in her 60s. I'm like, do you feel real, like a real adult? Like this feeling that I have of being a child, like, does that ever go away? And she's like, it doesn't. I'm like, okay. But I can relate to Steve Zissou just being this, all right.
Right. So in your TigerBelly universe, you know, I feel like who are you? Who's the captain? You know, who's Klaus? And who's the, you know, Bond company stooge?
The Bond company stooge? Is that the guy that they rescue?
Yes.
In Citroen Hotel?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Okay, so we know who the captain is. There's no, let's, you know, not kid ourselves. Bobby is obviously the captain of the ship. I like to think of myself as a less serious version and a less rich version of Eleanor. I think that...
But you're the brains behind the operation?
Yeah, I bought those mics, didn't I?
Right.
I think George is a Klaus.
I was hoping you would say he's the Bond stooge.
Yeah, I think so.
I was setting him up for that.
I would give him more credit than that because Klaus was a little bit prickly, right? And kind of angry, and that's just not George. I want to see who was the entertainment of the boat. I want to say Gilbert's maybe like Ned. He's that soft energy, very reliable energy, who pretended to be something he was not,
right?
Which is an audio engineer, and Ned pretended to be his son, right? He really wasn't his son,
right?
Right?
I don't know. It's yes, it looked like you know, the movie lives it like it proves to us, to the audience, but not to the characters that
right.
You know. So I think the characters do believe that relationship was real. Yeah,
like one of my favorite scenes is when Eleanor is like, he shoots blanks,
right?
Just like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I would say maybe, yeah, let's not make George Klaus, the stooge guy. Let's make him that.
Yeah. It just sounds like him just saying his the stooge guy. No, but so how do you meet George? How does he become a part of this TigerBelly family? Because I guess like Gilbert comes from a friend of yours, and he's like, okay, I'll figure out how to, you know, click record and not fuck it up.
Yeah.
How does this George come to the podcast, and how does the podcast become what it becomes?
George owes it all to Bryce, because Bryce was the one who cold DM'd me a couple episodes in and says, hey, I really like TigerBelly. My cousin George. So it was like his broker, like the guy who like really brokered the deal. And then I went to Bobby. I was like, do you remember working with George? He was like, nope. And he was like, show me a picture. I was like, this guy. He says he's worked with he's worked with you on Maker. And he was like, oh, yeah. I was like, well, should we start doing video podcasts? And he was like, yeah, I guess. I was like, I think he's good enough. He's like, okay. And so that's how George, entered the storyline.
So funny how things like happen very accidentally. There's no master plan. It just...
No, and so perfectly too, because everyone on TigerBelly is so opposite of each other. Like, we hardly really have anything in common, to be honest. But it just works. I love those guys. It's always been such a feeling of, I don't know, like, it's just like lightning in a bottle. It just worked out that way.
It did.
Yeah.
So I
because I could promise you in real life I would never be friends with George.
Yeah, I get it.
I think that our hobbies are completely opposite.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that this podcast brought us together and made us really good friends, and I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah. So if you were, the captain of your own ship, would you invite Esther and Annie?
I feel like if we're out to like look for a treasure, say for instance, like in Steve Zissou, they were looking for the jaguar shark, right?
Right.
I feel like Esther would be really good at the planning and the delegating part. And
From land.
Yeah. And from land. She'll be phoning it in or by telegraph.
Okay.
Annie would be just big entertainment for the crew.
Okay.
She's there for, for a big boost of comedic morale, I think.
So who else do you get into this adventure and in your ship? Who do you hire as your crew?
I'd have Carlos there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Carlos is, he's a sweetie pie. I'm trying to think of who my captain would be. I know I'm the captain, right?
You are.
Oh shit! Do you know that my dad, in the Philippines, our business was with shipping. He had cargo ships. So,
yeah, you're just realizing now you're the captain, but I feel deep inside you are.
I'm a fucking captain.
You are. Yeah.
Thanks, Fancy. I appreciate that. Yeah, but all the people I would bring onto my ship are people that are my tried and trues. My sister, my best friend, all ocean people who like love marine life, people who could probably like be good with navigation. Who knows?
Do you bring Jules?
Fuck yeah.
But she doesn't know how to do anything.
She knows. That girl has fooled everybody. She has fooled everybody so that no one asks anything of her. Mm-hmm. But she can do it all. Like when I'm not around, she cooks the best meals. And then when I come home, like, who cooked this? She was like, oh, Mates, my mom. She's like, Mates brought it over. And I was like, I didn't cook that. It's because she doesn't want to be asked to cook things.
I see.
But she can do it all. She is such a whiz at everything. She picks things up really fast. She doesn't want to do it for you. Mm. So she keeps her talents a secret.
So living with Jules all these years, bringing her over and all that, do you want to be a mom? Does she make you want to be a mom more or less?
Oh, she would make anyone want to be a mom. She is such an asset to my life. She adds so much, I don't know, so much of everything. She's such like a team player. Mm-hmm. But with or without her, I think I've always had mommy tendencies. I have 7 animals, Fancy.
Right.
I think there's a pattern there. I've always had animals. I've always liked being a caretaker in the relationship,
You mentioned a little bit, I think you went to Whiskey Ginger and talked to Andrew about how your relationship with Bobby, like you guys grew a lot and heal a lot of yourself, but in the process you also lost some of that, I guess, spontaneity, or like that, the fire. Is that part of the growing up, or is part of the healing, like kind of like you have to leave some part of you behind to become a more working, functional person?
Version. Yeah, I'd say so. Some would argue that I was way more fun, way more this and that in my 20s, early 30s, but that was just not sustainable for me. So it was, I was, this just fun thing like that. People seemed to really enjoy my company then, but I felt like that I wasn't being who I truly was. And I don't know if you're asking about like just the fire going out between two people when you're both like working on yourselves.
Mm-hmm. If that's part of the process, is like, I'm a better person, but at the same time, I guess the relationship that I build, I have to leave behind somehow.
Yeah, I'll admit, like when Bobby and I first got together, it just felt very fiery, exciting, sexual, all of these things. Like when you first, that happened when you first meet somebody, and I was introduced into his world and everything was so brand new. And, but when we started to see the cracks in our relationship and we started to kind of acknowledge them, and I start to work on myself, maybe there is a sense that like you become each other's safe harbor. And when you become each other's safe harbor, you don't really want to tear their clothes off. Like there is a sense, it does zap the sexual energy like a little bit. But also, we didn't do a lot of things right. I'm a codependent, he's an addict. It's a match made in hell and heaven at the same time. But I went into full caretaker mommy mode, and he went into full like weaponized incompetence / baby mode. And we worked really well with those were our roles, but it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And there's no sex when you're mommy, or there just isn't. I don't want to fuck my kid.
Right. I hope so.
I don't fuck my kid.
I agree on that one.
So,
oh, thanks.
So, how do you have a healthy relationship and be the best version of yourself then?
Two things. You could grow apart, or you could grow so deeply entangled with somebody. And Bobby and I were so deeply entangled. Mm-hmm. Like, my whole identity was him. Like everything, I woke up always thinking, what does he need today? Like, did I miss a call from his manager? Do I need to wake him up at a certain time? Like everything, I just prioritized him so much. Also, by the way, like, of course, like all of this knowing that if he succeeds, I succeed. Like, I'm not... Like, if Bobby does well, I do well. I always knew that was going to be the trickle-down effect. So I was very conscious of that. And in that way, I did take care of myself. I'm like, I'll boost him up. I'm riding these fucking coattails. And I did with TigerBelly. But I think now if I were to do it differently, I just, I set boundaries pretty early on. Like, you need to take care of yourself. You need to be your own whole thing. And I have my own set of dreams. I have my own set of things to do. And when we get home, let's connect. Let's have weird sex. And then we can individuate. Mm-hmm. But Bobby and I, it was just so entangled.
Is he becoming this Alistair character in the movie, the Jeff Goldblum, like this rich ex-boyfriend that nobody else is gonna match, or how do you see him now?
I still see him as a little bit of a Steve Zissou.
Yeah.
There's like a scene in that movie where he finally reads he gets the front cover of the magazine, right? Mm-hmm. That Kate Blanchett's character wrote.
Uh-huh.
And all the while, like leading up to this, he was like, what are you going to say about me? You better not be saying this about me, like being like worried that she was criticizing all of the things. But finally, he gets the front page and he reads it. And he was like, you know what? I am those things. They're not they are critical, but I did those things and I am those things.
Yeah. And I can live with that.
Yeah. And I really do love that about Bobby, is that he's okay being himself. Like, he's like, yeah, like I have a lot of frailties and some things I get extremely right and some things I'm really just bad at, but I am those things,
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's still a little bit more Steve than Alistair Hennessy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in the movie, Steve Zissou is doing this documentary and he gets a lot of criticism. People criticize him, like they don't like his work. And so how do you deal with things like that when, like, people, you became the bad guy for a lot of people? How did that happen? And then how do you deal with that? And how do you push forward?
Oh, pushing forward. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice but to keep it pushing. The one thing that I know I can always go to sleep at night, like knowing, is that I am good to the people in my life, mm-hmm. that I show up for people in genuine ways, that I am good to you guys, to Carlos, to Pete, that I'm a person of my word. And so it's just reinforcing who I know that I am. And that's enough. That has to be enough for me. And knowing that I have your friendship, I have my family's love, that has to be enough. If I start to go back to my codependent ways and wanting to receive validation externally or from strangers, it's over for me. I'll never get it. Certainly not in this space, and certainly not having been across from Bobby for 10 years and spilling all of these, like, my deepest, darkest, on a podcast. I know the bed I made. I appreciate the bed I made. I also know it's very costly to my mental health, but I also know now that it's just a part of my human story,
Yeah.
And
but also knowing you and knowing Bobby, I think obviously there's a lot of truth in the things that you guys say, but also it is the entertainment part where like those things get exaggerated, twisted, mixed together, right? Like you make stories up that are in that brand that you created, but people believe that person is 100% you. Anything that you say is 100% true.
Right.
I guess, like, what do you think, like, people get wrong about you? If you had to say, like, this is one thing that they think I'm like this, but absolutely I'm the opposite.
I kind of want to ask you that. What do you think people get wrong about me?
I mean, personally, because I know you well, and actually I haven't, I met you personally before I did any TigerBelly research, and then like seeing George work with you. I think that you were always very caring. And I think, Bobby, he's amazing in many ways, but I think he's a very difficult person, like he's not an easy person to deal with. And you like manage that so well and so gracefully. And like, and I feel like I'm not sure. I didn't follow what happened with you and how the people like build you up and like create this amazing woman. And then, other than that, something that people love to do, just build people up to just tear them down. Yeah, I think that's entertaining. That's why we have so much reality. But yeah, I don't know what the moment was where like say, oh, this person is the person that I have to blame, whatever it is.
Yeah. But I think that's how a lot of brains work. There has to be like a fall guy. I am that fall guy.
Right.
But I think one of the things people get wrong about me is how pretty boring and simple I am day to day. I'm kind of just a hermit kind of nature thing. I keep I don't know. It's like sometimes there's this idea that you're this ultra exciting thing, and I just am not. I'm a sensitive thing. I like to read. I like to hang out with my animals. I like to stay home, and pretty fucking boring. I'm a pretty boring person. I always joke a lot on Trash Tuesday. I was like, yeah, I was sucking dick in an alleyway. Like, that is such an embellishment, really. It was probably sucking the dick of a boyfriend who I loved a lot. You know what I mean? And a boy.
It did not sound like an embellishment.
No, but it's like, if I was saying things like, yeah, I got fucking, like, I got, railed in the ass in Spain. It was definitely with a boy I was in a relationship with. But I always just say it in a really crass way because it just makes it more interesting. It would be like, there was this boy I liked, and then he asked if we could do anal. That's not as fun. So getting railed in the ass, in Spain is going to be
this definitely the more shocking version, right?
Yeah.
People do.
But I was never good at being single for too long, and I can't do that anymore.
Okay, and is it working? It's like,
it's hard.
Are you happy alone?
Oh.
In that way?
Yes and no. I'm somebody that likes to cuddle with someone every night.
Right.
So I have my dogs for now. They feel that hole inside me.
Okay, so talking about dogs, there is a dog in the movie, Cody, right? And
they left him on...
I was going to ask you, would you have left him behind?
Of course not. Leave a three-legged dog that was the ultimate hero of the movie?
Right. So
No
you would have
way.
sacrificed everybody on that ship to get the dog.
Of course. And also, by the way, there was this one scene. So the easiest way for me to dislike a movie is if there's any type of weird animal shit.
Okay.
Which is, this is the only part, my only true criticisms about Steve Zissou is that they had worker albino dolphins. They had that freaking shamu
Right.
trapped in its enclosement. They left Cody, and then Alistair Hennessy, there was a scene where he slaps the shit out of Cody for like whimpering.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I don't like that stuff. But no way I would have sacrificed my entire ship's safety to get Cody.
They didn't kill the shark.
They didn't.
So
They didn't.
There's a little
Thank
bit
God. Well, he couldn't. When you see how beautiful this thing is, you're
Right.
like, oh, okay. Like, it needed to eat.
Do you have a jaguar shark in your life, like an invisible enemy that you're like, that is there?
Oh, that's a loaded one. It's not very invisible.
Okay.
There's yes, there are several people you want to stick it to.
Okay.
For eating your best friend Esteban. You know what I mean? Like, also, here's the thing about revenge. I think by the time you get to that place where you're like, I'm going to stick it to them, you probably no longer want to stick it to them because you've achieved something and now they feel so low. So it's like, use them as a fuel to kind of get to where you need to be. But I can almost assure you, by the time you get to where you need to be, to stick it to them, you're going to have no desire to do so. You're going to be like, this small guy? That's what you were worried about?
Right.
No, I'm chill. I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. I like it. It looks like there's a chapter of TigerBelly that is the Bobby Khalyla relationship. This couple, crazy couple who, just talk about their lives and interview a lot of interesting people. Now that you guys announced to the world that relationship has changed, how is TigerBelly different, or how will it be different?
I think it's better. I think it's exponentially better. I think I walk into that room and I don't look at Bobby as someone who can hurt me. I look at him as someone who I genuinely love, who is my friend, who is a complex human being, and who I love talking to. And sometimes that could get lost if we just had a fight before we recorded. We don't have that anymore. I'm not tied to him romantically, and it's just been, the energy in the room has just been so much nicer, and dare I say even like more loving than it's ever been, because I was frustrated in the relationship, and I'm sure he was too. And you got to put on a show,
Right.
but now it feels a lot more genuine. And yeah, I feel like we're back to being just two people on one mic since 10 years ago. It's starting to feel like that again.
Yeah, that's a cool image. I like that. Okay, so how do you, now that you're in, he's obviously a good friend, someone who it looks like he'll always be there for you. And in the movie we have like someone like Klaus, right, who believes like he's this such a big friend of Steve and Stevan, and he gets jealous when this new person comes in. Like, how do you know? How do you know who is a good friend? What are the qualities for a good friend? If a new friend comes into your life, what are those qualities that will make that person a good friend?
For me, my standards of friendship might be a little impossible to reach because I feel like I've been so lucky with the friends that I do have in my life, a lot of whom I've known since I first came to America, and I no longer consider them friends. They're my sisters, they're my family. But we bend over backwards for each other. For example, when I moved out of Bobby's home, it was supposed to just be me, Jules, my mom, and my sister. And we were just gonna move what we could move in a truck, and that was it. But when I got there, it was 8 of my friends, and they were already inside the house. They were saging the corners. There was food on the table. There were plants in certain corners. There were house slippers already at the front of the door. There was a sign that said "Welcome home," and it just kind of confirmed for me like that, like there is no better feeling than knowing that people are going to show up for you by hook or crook. They're going to put their lives aside. They know that it's a difficult day for you. Mm-hmm. And the tiniest things matter. And so, yeah, just showing up for your friends. If you show up for me during difficult times in my life, like you're a homie for life, basically.
Yeah. Did you cry like living?
Yeah.
Was it, do you feel like nostalgic about that time, or do you feel like, okay, no, this was like a great chapter, let's start a new one?
With Bobby?
Yeah, with Bobby, the house, the whole, because it looks like the Bobby chapter never ends because you guys still work together. It's just a different version.
It's extremely painful. It's so weird how you can be like, oh, fine, I understand. You can intellectualize a breakup all you want. You could be like, hey, we're not together romantically, like we don't work. But like last night even, I'm like, why do I just miss him? Why do I just like miss having him like around, And so, but we talk about this. Thank God him and I can sort of process this stuff together, because he'll say the same to me. He's just like, I miss the sound of the dogs. I miss waking up at 3 p.m., walking out and hearing you and Jules like, pitter-pattering around or whatever it is. But I think this is also just grief. And I think it is a necessary thing to go through. And maybe there is a piece of me that will never get over Bobby, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that little piece is really just like honoring this kind of unique love we shared. It's pretty fucking unique.
Yeah.
Like him and I, we had our own brand that worked for us. Slightly disastrous, but there was real deep fucking love there.
Yeah. Okay. Something sillier. Do you wish you could breathe underwater?
Oh my god. Oh my god. So in the Philippines, there are these group of people called the Bajau. And they don't have gills per se, but they have enlarged spleens, and that allows them to stay. Most of them are spear fishermen. They're seafaring kind of communities that rely on spearfishing for sustenance to get their food. So they've evolved to have these enlarged spleens. I don't want gills. I just want a slightly enlarged spleen to keep me down a little bit longer. Because right now, like, my lung capacity is very average. And in my head, I'm like, oh, well, this is in my blood. I'm Filipino. I must have the Bajau spleen. I'm a swimmer. I don't. I can stay a minute and a half, and that's about it.
That's a good superpower, yeah. So if you had to do a documentary, what would be the subject? What are your obsessions?
I'm sure it's a documentary now, but 10 years ago, I was like, I want to do a documentary about the prison system in the Philippines and the prisoners that do like the Michael Jackson story. Michael Jackson dances, the thriller and stuff. I'm sure someone's done that. Probably something really Philippines related. I would love to do a documentary about the Bajau, or there's this group of, they call them like Korea's first working moms, the Henyo women. My friend Kimmy Werner does this like incredible kind of, she like swims with them. She learns how to like sea forage from them. But I would want to do like a full feature thing on them. These are women in their 80s who still go out every day, put their wetsuits on, and they collect abalone. They dive in cold, rough water for this every day. And they do it like when they were like, some of them are like 8.5 months pregnant, and they're like, nope, we got to put our wetsuits on and go there and do this. Yeah. So water related stuff.
Makes sense. Yeah. So there is a line in the movie at the end when, it finally looks like this tiger shark is real, where Bill Murray says, I wonder if he'll remember me. I think it's kind of like few emotional notes in the movie. I don't know if you find the movie very emotional. I think like I do. You do? Yeah. The whole thing. So yeah, I think for me, that's kind of like at the end when I gets a little more into the emotional thing, and it's like, how do you connect with this movie in that emotional element? What would you, if you had to say to someone, go see this movie, how, in that emotional realm, how would you describe it to someone?
Oh, that's tough because there's so many like things like thematically that it hits. But I think the general theme for me, the biggest takeaway is, you create a boogeyman in your head. And by the time, you get the chance to kill that boogeyman is not really the boogeyman. You've created that boogeyman in your head. And for his character, at least, the jaguar shark did eat his friend Esteban. So maybe he was kind of a real boogeyman, but not in any nefarious way. He was just an animal surviving. Yeah. And I think that, the biggest takeaway for me is someone could hurt you really, really, really bad. And that is the boogeyman in your head. But more than likely, it's because they themselves are just trying to survive. And I hope to God that no one's really out there trying to like hurt each other intentionally. And that jaguar shark certainly wasn't. He was just hungry.
Okay. That's a good take on the movie. So for those who say like, okay, The Godfather is a great movie, best movie ever made, or Vertigo, why would you say no? This is that movie?
Because it's when I look at this movie, it feels free. It's like someone was just like, I have this idea. Can we put a boa constrictor right there? Can we put, this thing right there? Even at the scene at the end when Ned is dying in the water, how the blood splashes into the screen. And I'm like, oh, like there was just, it looked like friends playing and having full freedom to exercise their creative whims. And it's so like just aesthetically beautiful. I think it's so silly. It's so funny. The first 10 minutes of that film, like, is one of the most hilarious things ever. Even when Alistair Hennessy and Steve Zissou talk to each other for the first time because they're both fighting over Eleanor, is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Like, it's extremely funny. It's incredibly heartwarming, but also that's what I love about Wes Anderson. It's like full flex of his imagination.
Yeah.
And yeah, how can you say no to a movie like that?
Cool. So before we finish, I was talking to people they know you, and I found Jules had a couple things she told me about you that, I mean, some of them I think you have told them before, some of them you haven't. So I'm gonna ask you. She says that you love to cook, but you don't, or you haven't had the chance to cook because Bobby would prefer to just eat out all the time or like order. So are you cooking now?
I'm cooking a lot. Yeah. I used to cook a lot, but it's hard to cook for myself, just one person. The way I cook is always 4 or more people. So when it was just Bobby and I, it was like, hey, I made this. And he was like, oh, he'd love everything I cooked. But most of the time he would just be like, going to Koreatown after my set, or going to go eat this. And then he doesn't eat leftovers. So yeah, but I'm cooking a lot now. Thanks for asking.
The second thing is like, she says that you always like gay men, like, or or guys like Bobby. She said like Bobby in quotes, that have a gay side or a feminine side. Is that true? Those are the energies you feel attracted to?
Yeah, it's half gay or butt. I don't know. It's like maybe I do have a pattern. Like, I just think that if a dude is down or that open with certain experiences and is not encumbered by society's expectations for him, he's probably really good in bed. And I don't know. I just like, I like that. And wait, hang on. I think there's oh God, somebody sent me a meme.
You have bars in here?
Quick, call for help. Call for help.
Yes.
Please.
Hang on one second. I just really want to read it to you. This is just a tweet, and it says, is he really a freak if he's not even a little gay? And I really, everyone sent that to me last week.
Interesting. Well, in the movie, like Steve at one point, right? Like they said, like everybody, or supposedly everybody, is a little gay.
Yeah, because Alistair Hennessy,
right?
He says he calls himself half gay.
Right.
Yeah. It's just, I like these boys. Okay. I like these boys who like boys. And I don't know. It cannot be a kink. I think it's tied to the fact that I think they're just down.
Okay.
And they're open, and that excites me.
Yeah. And then the last thing that she said is like, that you like to eat ass. But
oh my God, Jules!
But the guy has to deserve it. So what does a guy have to do to deserve that?
When did you interview this fucking heathen of a child? He has to deserve it. No, most of the time he's just got to want it.
Okay.
And I'm the last 2 asses I I snacked on. The last two, I like looked at them and I was like, these are beautiful. They look nicer than mine. And these were, and so, you know, they didn't, they deserve it. They deserve it. They deserved it.
Okay.
Yeah, they deserved it.
Awesome. Are you a David Bowie fan?
I am.
Do you
But
remember?
when I remember just when I first watched that movie, I became obsessed with Say George. And he was my MySpace song for so long.
Yeah.
Or his covers were, yeah.
Awesome. So last part of this is like the newspapers that got to the island. So I'm gonna read you a couple things that people have said about this movie.
Okay.
And you have to defend this movie against these users.
Okay.
So the first review says, this film ranks at the top of most awful films in history. Though it claims to be a comedy, there is a little to not humor in it whatsoever. An all-star cast lures you in, and then the director-writer Wes Anderson kills you with a pointless story, bad music, and an absolute boredom.
Dude, this guy is in a dungeon having only ever had sex with his hand. Like, have some fucking levity in your life. That movie is joyful. It is colorful. There's stop motion animation. There's a fucking crayon ponyfish. There's a jaguar shark. Like, do you not have fucking eyes? Like, what did you watch?
Review number 2. I feel myself stupid for seeing what I now consider the worst film I've ever watched. Yes, it is worse than Two Girls and a Guy, and that's saying something. I don't know why Owen Wilson, Cate Blanchett, and Willem Dafoe signed to do this movie. A death wish? Why, in name of all it's sacred, they acted in this big piece of shit?
What did this person grow up like liking? Hallmark movies? Like, what are they looking for?
Okay, and
Just angry virgins.
Bill Murray, not at all funny. I'd want my money back. Owen Wilson, I usually like his acting, but what a lousy role. Cate Blanchett, beautiful as always, dumb role, easy to intimidate, reported. Don't waste your money, no plot.
I mean, great use of adjectives. Dumb role, not funny. Not only are they all wrong, but they probably have pretty shitty taste in movies. Like,
Yeah.
they'll probably be like, Khalyla, you should, watch The Nun. Or like, I don't fucking know. Like, look at this, it's a great action movie and it's some fucking, like, that Christian movie that Nicolas Cage did.
Right.
Do you remember that one?
I do. I forgot the title, but yeah.
Which was actually turned out to be a great
It's
movie.
like a fun...
high entertainment
Yes.
value, but
Yeah.
still.
Yeah.
Probably Christian. Two things that writer could be: fully conservative Christian or fully, like, PC lady. Like, sometimes they
No sense of humor. Yeah, they
get along with their lack of sense of humor. Right.
All right. So the last thing, one of the things that I like the most about this movie is the fact that Bill Murray's character keeps this letter from his alleged son since he was a kid. So since we're on an island and we are trapped here, if we were to write a letter to your dad, what would that letter say? Can we write a letter together?
Dear Papa.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I'm still alive. I realize now that I should have spent more time sitting with you one-on-one and listening to your stories instead of being an angsty teenager and dismissing it as time not well spent, according to my selfish teenage self. I recognize that you were right and I am a lot like you. But you were also right that you said I would probably have a somewhat difficult but colorful life. I miss you. And I want you to know that I am okay. I will see you in my dreams, probably underwater, where you loved the most.
Right. Sign.
What did he used to call me? Oh, just Khalyla. He hated it when people called me or gave me nicknames. Your name is Khalyla. It's not Khalai. It's not this. It's not Kay. It's Khalyla.
Okay. So then we're gonna it's in even this
Message in a
island.
plastic bottle. That's not gonna.
It's polluted. This island. Producers. But yeah, that way
You know,
That wasn't
it's
my
not gonna.
bottle.
it's not gonna get that far.
I mean, it might because plastics they stay.
It's-
Yeah.
You know, I'll kill a turtle somewhere. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Khalyla, for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm obsessed with this set, and this was, dare I say, the most fun podcast I've done in a really long time.
Oh wow, thank you. Yay.